Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and it is my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character, conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Good evening again. It's Monday, May 12th. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. I am your host and executive producer, Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and tonight we're talking about the topic and the article, the best thing she could have done for you. The best thing she could have done for you. And my very special guest this evening is Reverend Pastor Kimberly Mabry Wright. Please don't miss it. Tell a phone, tell a friend, everybody to tune in. We're on our YouTube channel, the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We're also broadcasting on our Facebook Live platforms, J. Lauren Russell, as well as the Matters of Faith Facebook groups. So tell a phone and tell a friend the best thing she could have done for you. Matters of Faith family, please don't forget to support our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, for all of your church financial consulting needs. Contact us at jlorenr@jlr.llc. That's jlorenr@jlr.llc. Or simply give us a call, 718-328-8096. 718-328-8096. If you need your trustees to be trained, if you need evangelism training, or if you need to do a financial workshop, if you want to build, grow, or borrow money in order to grow your church, buy your church, please reach out to the JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, at jlorenr@jlr.llc, or call us 718-328-8096. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. You can purchase the book through my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15. If you want a hard copy, simply note that. If you want to get a hard copy and you do not use Cash App, please send a check or money order to Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's the JLR Company at P.O. Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get it as an ebook. Go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all black-owned restaurants and so much more all over the nation. That's right, Eat Okra. Now get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50, and you can get that subscription by going to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. Professional, compassionate, and family-friendly services in time of bereavement. John J. Fox & Sons Incorporated Funeral Services, proudly serving the Bronx community for 125 years. 718-733-9114. 718-733-9114. And don't forget, please subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. And now the article, The Best Thing She Could Have Done for You. That article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. It can also be found in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. It's also in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter, and coming soon, it will be in the Positive Community magazine, www.thepositivecommunity.com. Now, many of you have received the link directly to the article from me. And if you had not, then you can find it on all of my social media outlets. You can find it on my Facebook groups. You can find it on LinkedIn. You can also find it on Blue Sky. The best thing she could have done for you. Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, New King James Version. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, dubbed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maids to get it. The best thing she could have done for you. In the book of Exodus, the story is shared of Jochebed, a mother who realized she could not protect her son from a governmental decree that mandated that the first male child born to anyone in the Hebrew nation would be put to death. This was implemented to prevent the prophecy from coming true of a child being born who would free the Hebrew nation from the bondages of Egyptian slavery. Jochebed wanted only what was best for her son, so she devised a plan that resulted in her infant son being found by Pharaoh's daughter. It was her who gave the baby the name Moses, which means drawn out or saved from the water, and he was then raised in the palace as Pharaoh's grandson. It was the child Jochebed gave away who stood at the burning bush and spoke to God face to face, who received the 10 Commandments from God, who went to Pharaoh and told him that the Lord said, "Let my people go." It was the child Jochebed gave away who led the nation of Israel out of Egypt, who held out his staff and saw God part the Red Sea, who brought the nation, the Hebrew nation, to the border of the Promised Land. It was the child Jochebed gave away who was the one who led the Hebrew nation to their freedom. Sometimes, the best thing a mother can do for their child is to give them away. It may sound cruel, mean, even unnatural, but the God I serve is the one who determines what's best for us and works all things for our good when we love him and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. We are told in the 10 Commandments to honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Exodus 20:12. If your mother was not able to provide, whatever you may think about her, know that even in her inability to provide, she wanted only what was and is best for you. When you carefully look back over your life, you will find that whatever your mother could not do for you may be the best thing she could have done for you. Blessed Mother's Day. And now here's my question for tonight. How would you describe what your mother couldn't do for you as the best thing she could have done for you? Can I ask that question again? How would you describe what your mother couldn't do for you as the best thing she could have done for you? Matters of Faith family, it really gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to some and then to present to others my very special guest this evening and my friend, Reverend Kimberly Mabry Wright, who has lived, worked, and served the East Harlem community for more than 4 decades. Presently, she is the senior pastor of the Church of the Resurrection and is the executive director of the Center for Life and Faith. She's also helped establish and develop the Booker T. Washington Learning Center, which provides a variety of educational services to children and teens in East Harlem. Reverend Wright is also an educator and activist. She believes that the Christ in the temple is the Christ in her community, judging the wicked, liberating the oppressed, and setting the captives free. She's a chaplain for the New York City MTA and loves working in prison ministry, hospice care, and with substance abusers. Reverend Wright is motivated by her great faith and her love for her 4 children. So Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me this evening my guest and my friend, this awesome woman of God, Reverend Kimberly Mabry Wright. And that now introduces you and brings us face to face. Good evening, my sister. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you for being my guest tonight. And I want to open up with a quick word before you say anything else. I've read your bio, they know a little bit about you, but please tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know.
Ooh, um, what should you know about me? You should know that my bio kind of mentions it, but you should know that I grew up in the community that I live, work, and serve in, and that I love East Harlem, um, and that God delivered me from much in order to get me to where I am now, and to have, and for me, in order for me to have the sensitivities that I have to other people.
Hmm, that's interesting. So, what you feel for people, the sensitivity, I like that word. You attribute that a lot to where you were delivered from.
Yes,
Got you.
absolutely.
Got you. Got you. Got you. Got you. Well, I appreciate that. That's good. And you grew up in the East Harlem,
Yeah,
and you still live there and still serve there.
yeah.
You weren't pushed out because a whole lot of people in East Harlem was pushed.
No, I wasn't pushed out. It's funny. I grew up in East Harlem, and so I grew up in East Harlem, very poor, like
Hmm.
extremely poor. My grandmother raised my mother's children with, I think there were five of us plus a cousin, $256 a month.
Mm.
So we were poor, poor. No like public assistance. My grandmother had a lot of pride. No, like I didn't have health insurance. I mean, we had nothing. And but she figured it out. I think what I've gotten from that is like I know what the word no means. I was very
Mm.
used to hearing the word no growing up, but I grew up in East Harlem when there was a lot of vacant lots, a lot of old dope fiends, a lot of gangs, a lot of um, poverty, and it was very dangerous. And then my teenage years were like, the 80s, the crack epidemic, and um, and then I went away to prep school and I went away to college and I came back. And I think people were like, you want to live here? How come you're here? Why do you work here? Why do you live here? Why do you, like you could get out of here. You don't have to be here. And I was just like, what does that say about you? I love this neighborhood. I love the people in it. This is my community and I want to live and work here. Why would I want to go downtown with other people? And I had never had any desire to do that. And then now it's a community which is changing so much. And like, so many people are being pushed out, but I'm very grateful I'm able to stay. I'm very, very grateful. But if I had not been here all of these years, I don't think I could just move in now.
No, I don't think you could. It's interesting because I grew up in the South Bronx, and so we
Yeah,
had similar
right. Similar.
circumstances and situations, where
Y'all have a
like,
whole skyline in the South Bronx now
oh my
that is
goodness,
just
oh my goodness,
incredible.
that is just unaffordable to the average
Yeah,
person here.
yeah,
And so you see people, in the various parts because now they have on Bruckner Boulevard. It's kind of like Restaurant Row. It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, and they wanted to that somebody came up with the bright idea. They wanted to name it like Bronx Ho or something like that, like so.
Yeah, so bro,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Some other name like that.
yeah. I don't call Spanish Harlem Spaha either.
Yeah, yeah, we kind of negated that. We nixed that, so
Mm-mm.
it won't come back later on because I think people when they move in, they want to give it their own name and create
Right.
their own community and things of that nature, and they just want to confiscate whatever it is that was there and just
Absolutely.
totally forget everything that took place.
No, I still say I live in El Barrio. When people ask, I don't say Spanish Harlem. I don't
Yeah,
say Upper East Side. I don't
yeah,
say Upper Yorkville. I don't, all the new things people call it. It is El Barrio
yeah,
till
yeah.
I die.
People ask me, I say, I live in the South Bronx.
Yeah.
Or I tell them, they say, where you from? I say, I'm from the South. They say, yeah, I
Yeah.
said South Bronx.
Yeah.
Because
Woo-hoo.
because it is changing, and I fight hard for that because a lot of times, what you get, and I happen to have been able to purchase my home, my wife and I, and so we are part of that new generation is coming back trying to reclaim the community, by having homes built in the community where it used to be abandoned or burned down buildings and things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Yeah. That's the
Now,
East Harlem I grew up
yeah.
in.
And now,
But
people are trying to buy it and purchase it and things of that nature and just reap the benefit without having gone through the process.
yeah. Yeah. But I knew early, I knew very early, I was young and I understood when I would see cars driving up First Avenue to leave
Hmm.
Midtown to get to Westchester. I understood that I had waterfront property. I grew up on the
Mm.
water. First Avenue from 99th Street or something all the way to 125th. East Harlem is the most densely populated area of New York City with housing projects.
Mm.
It's the most densely populated area. You can just walk from one project to another project, from the river to the, like,
Right,
it's
right,
all
right.
housing projects. And I understood that I had waterfront property because I grew up going to the beach all the time in Long Island.
Mm.
And so I understood the value of being on the water. I understood what a view cost. I understood that I could walk to 86th Street. I could cross 96th Street very easily. So I understood how easy it would be for people to push their way uptown, which is what they've done. Um, and so I had a vision for all of the vacant lots. Like I just
Mm.
knew I went to church the first time and my pastor asked me to go with him for a walk. And he literally
Hmm.
walked me from lot to lot and said, if you could put anything, I was about 22 years old. He's like, if you could put something here, what would you put? I said, a theater. If you could put something here, like a community theater, what would you put here? A library. What would you put here? A children's theater company. What would you put here? Like a really good like restaurant row. And he was just like, oh, okay, like businesses and community, marketplace for people in the community to sell their goods and whatever. Um, and he always taught me, but I always naturally had it too. I've always had a vision for what things could be, whether it's things or people. Like that's just how God has always made me. So I knew East Harlem could be something extraordinary, and I knew that the people here didn't see it. And the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people
Hmm.
perish. And so you don't see it, and other people do see it. And the problem is, other people see an opportunity, an economic opportunity, and it's not their home and it's not their
Right,
community. So they don't care
right,
what it takes, what they have to do to get what they see, which is money,
right,
right? Um,
right.
and so it's been hard to live through this because a lot of it, and then I've lived through the people who say like, oh, it'll be better when they get here. Oh, it'll be better. Our
Mm.
schools will get better. Our supermarkets will get better. Like that's been really hard to deal with too. It's like, where are you now? Oh, you
Yeah.
couldn't stay.
Yeah, I feel you because I feel the same way. It's like, we have so much potential here. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much potential in these quote unquote inner cities, if you will. And I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, one of the challenges that we have is that, in this community, we have a lot of low income housing and they're building more low income housing. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't generate a tax base, which
Right.
means that you don't get a lot of businesses coming in. And those who come in and establish businesses do not live in the community. So
Mm-hmm.
the dollar doesn't recirculate. So you don't have a financially healthy community, even
Right.
though you have some. So what the idea was initially here in the South Bronx, Charlotte Street, that whole Charlotte Street project
Mm-hmm.
was to bring back home ownership so that there'd be a tax base which would draw other businesses in the community, which would
Right.
attract other homeowners, and then you can co-op or condominiumize the apartments and give people ownership. And when people have
Yeah.
ownership, they stay, they respect, there's a
Yeah.
whole different mindset to that. And then, of course,
But
it
you have
looked
to
like it
see
was
it.
moving in the direction, and then the vultures came and started devouring the properties, and then started to turning into low income housing. And the city funds that kind of stuff, as
Yeah.
opposed to the more permanent, real residential home ownership that can happen even in apartments. And so,
Uh-huh.
and so what we have is in my community, we have like two banks in the entire community. The entire community. We don't have a business base. I'm the president of the precinct council. So we don't have a business base in my community. So we don't have people who support the precinct council to do the things that the precinct council needs to do because the businesses aren't there. And the people in the community, well, they feel that they're more, more the ones who are being quote unquote unhealthily policed, so they don't support the idea.
Right.
So it's a vicious cycle that's created, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's interesting because here, even in this article, right, the best thing that she could have done for you, it's a way of looking. Okay, so how do we pick up those pieces? How do we put them back
Hmm.
together again? How do we then become, the what the parents can't give to their children, whether they're there or not, then how do we become those secondary providers to help them to actualize themselves so that they can see the vision that you just articulated?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that was wired in me, as I had kind of mentioned, my mom didn't raise me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my grandmother did. And because my grandmother took custody of my mother's five children when she was 66 years old, um, the truth is a community raised me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm grateful for that. So I've always been a real, I've always been able to identify and appreciate surrogacy. Um, and and I've tried to be that for, I mean, I think of that in the work that I do, that in many ways I'm a surrogate parent. In many ways I co-parent with other parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With the natural parents. Having a preschool, after school, summer camp, all those things. Um, Kids are with us a lot. They're with us a lot. And not only are they with us many hours of the day, many hours of the week, our children are also with us for many years because we go from preschool all the way through college. So I ran into someone the other day, my daughter who grew up, you know, at the center that I run and the church. We went to an event that she was having, and kids from preschool, who she went to preschool, were there.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter lives in California and came to New
Mm-hmm.
York to do an event, and kids from preschool and after school were there.
Mm-hmm.
So, community is really important, and us being able to see ourselves as people who step in on behalf of other people and carry the burden, whether someone is biologically our children, our child, or not. It's just critically important that we see a child, see their need, and have compassion, which is, one of the things God does in the scripture. It talks about how, the baby wept and then someone had compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so then drew the baby out of the water, right? Out of what could have been disastrous,
Yes.
truly, could have been fatal. Um, and it's kind of, we all know that this is kind of like the idea of Noah's Ark, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this saving through the water and bringing them through the water and out of it for life, so that they might have another chance at life. And so it's a beautiful story, but I always say when I preach, like, who are you in the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you Pharaoh? Well, I know we all like to think that we're Jesus or the Savior or the saint or we all like to think we're always the good guy, but sometimes, we're Pharaoh or we're Goliath or
Right.
we're
Right.
the Pharisees or
Right.
we're, right? So who are we in this
Saul.
story?
Saul.
Right. Or we're Saul.
Right.
And here sometimes, we're the one who gives, and sometimes we're the one who gets, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we're the one who protects, and sometimes, and you have to just know who God needs you to be in it at any given moment and not allow fear, trepidation, um, desperation to rule you, but instead to just, trust in the Lord. So I think this is a beautiful story women
Mm-hmm.
of women um, figuring out how to take care of a child
Yeah.
and each one doing what they were able to do,
Mm-hmm.
what they had capacity for. One had capacity to bear a child, another one had capacity to financially and physically rear and protect, and the other one could nurse and could nurture and like everyone did when pray, and I'm sure prayed.
Yeah. And
Everyone did what they,
even the sister, she
even the
watched
sister.
him and kept an eye
That's right.
on him while he
Yeah.
floated in the water.
Yes. So I think it's always like asking ourselves, what can I do? What am I called to do? What would God have me to do in this moment? Um, what's the best that I have to offer, and what would I do by faith, right? Like, what is God's will for me in this moment? From the moment that Moses is born, his mother is trusting in God, like, just trusting in God, trying to keep him quiet, trying to protect him, trying to
Mhm.
preserve his life. And um, who knew, you know, did she know that he was the prophet, who the prophet was talking about, that the firstborn would be the one and he's the one, like, did
Mhm.
she know it
Mhm.
was him? Right? Like, but something compelled her. And this is the Holy Spirit is so present in this, in all of this, the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
And so, something compelled her to think it would be okay to hide this child for as long as she could. And then something compelled her to, to do what she could, the way she could, when she did, in the moment she did,
Mhm.
when he would be fat, like all of that. It's such a beautiful story of how God weaves together our lives, right? And how there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, there's no happenstance, there's no chance, there's no, right? It's all God. It's God and his sovereignty, it's God and his provision, it's God providence, providence, it's God's power, his grace, his love, his mercy, it's all God. And if we could look at our own lives,
Mm.
and trust for our own lives, if we could draw some strength and wisdom and trust from this story, we could have a little bit more peace when we feel like we're, bumping around in the dark, not knowing what's going to happen next, right? And what day did she know what, from day to day, she had to think he could just start crying loud, it'd be over, right?
Right.
Just the
Right.
wrong moment, someone could hear, and someone could tell, and someone could see something, and someone could, right? Like, there's a million ways in 3 months this could go very wrong. And again, I think being led to do, even when fear is present, that faith is always what we are walking by. It doesn't say you don't feel fear, it says we don't, we walk by faith. What we
Right.
do is faithful
Right.
actions. And so it's really, um it's also like a beautiful story about how
Mm.
we're all doing the best we can.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I think Mother's Day being yesterday is a day where so many people are so, like, struggle so much with, like, well, I didn't have a good mother, I don't have a good father, I don't have, like, and how do I honor someone who hasn't been good, or hasn't really been there, or hasn't been all that I want them to be or needed them to be. Like, also being gracious, like, we're all doing the best we can.
Right. And
We're
that's
all
one of the things
doing,
I pointed out in the article. I wanted to make sure I mentioned
yes.
that because, and then I didn't mention it in the article, but it's true in my life. You know, you can't, every mother, I don't, and I used to work in foster care. So let's kind of make that clear. And I used to recruit foster mothers,
Mhm,
foster parents. That was one of the tasks. That's what they hired me to do, is help them recruit foster parents. And we did it.
mhm,
And we not only met the goal, we exceeded the goals.
mhm,
So, looking at people trying to find out whether or not they have those qualities. And so I say that to say this, that sometimes, and this is the reason for the title, the best thing that a parent can do for you is to release you and let
mhm,
someone else nurture you and bring you along. I'll give you two examples. Number one was this young man that I met there at the facility. We worked with adolescents, and this young man, we did a video on him, and he saw the video and did not like the way he appeared in the video. He did not like, so he literally began to change his appearance. He got a haircut, he changed the way he dressed, and in the video, he said, when I got here, he said, I've been the man of my family since I was 3 years old, 4 years
mhm,
old. He said, I came here And for the first time in my life, I could be a kid. I could be a
Nice.
child. He said, I saw trees and grass. I'd never seen that before. He said, and I could actually just relax and be who I
Right.
was. And then when he
Right.
saw himself, he's like, the image that I saw, and he told me this. He sat in my office. He says, the image that I saw did not agree with me. It didn't look like the guy that I felt like on the inside. And so I decided that
Nice.
I would change that. And so he made a concerted effort to make a difference. And so I'll never forget him because he left there. And I remember I was going to get a cup of coffee and he was coming down the street and he saw me and he ran up to me. He said, Mr. Russell, Mr. Russell. He said, I saw you. I just had to come up to you and tell you thank you because you inspired me so much. He said, he says, I found the girl. He says, I'm getting ready to get married. And he began to tell me all of these things was happening in his life. And I was so proud of him. But more than that, he was proud of himself because he saw who he could be. And then he was gleaning from everyone that was around him. And then the second story, the second part that I didn't write in the article, I preached it in my sermon. My mother died when I was 14 years old. She literally dropped dead, literally right in front of all of us, all four of us kids, and my dad. And so, we were like, well, what's going to happen to us? My sister actually said that to my father. What's going to happen to us? And my father said, we're a family and we're going to stick together. And when I think about it, one of the best things that my mother did for me was not be there for me. Now, I would have been somebody today if I made it to today, but I wouldn't be the man that I am today had she still been there. And it wasn't something that she did intentionally because if she had her rather, she would probably rather that she be there, but she couldn't be there. And so I was able to glean from everybody else. Like you said, the community were my parents. I was able to glean from everyone in the community, my dad and my aunt who moved in with us and all of those people who contributed in my life, my friends' mothers, all of these people that I work with, people that I got to know, they all contributed and they made a significant impact. But the foundation that my mother laid was the foundation that I needed to build on. So I honor my mother. I honor my father because they did what they could do with what they had to work with. Now, both of them died young because 5 years after my mother died, my dad died. So it was like as a young man coming out of the box, so to speak, I was an orphan. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to glean and pull from every resource that was out there. And that's what I did. And so I honor my mother and my father because they laid a foundation that has stuck with me all of these years of my life.
So it's so funny when you gave me this article. I'm like, does he know
Mhm.
these things about me? Like, did he do this on purpose? Does he know about my mother and my father? So, just a little transparency. My mom killed herself when I was 7, and my father, was not really in my life at all. I didn't live with him. My grandmother raised me, and as I said, and I was my mother's youngest. So we were
Mm,
when she died, 7, 9, 13. 7, 10, 13, 15, and 17, 5 of us. And we were some bad little children after she died. I mean, I think they
yeah.
were my brothers were probably bad when she was alive, but my mother was also severely mentally ill. She was
Right. Got it.
severely
Got it.
schizophrenic.
Mm,
And so I don't think I've ever said, the best thing my mother ever did for me was die or kill herself. But I would say that um, God set things up in such a way that I would be okay, even without her. Um, and and I wasn't for a while, so I don't want to seem like I was fine because I really was not. And that's, as I said in the beginning, God had to deliver me from much because I was traumatized and a mess and
Oh,
not well
I've
cared
been
for.
there. I understand. I
Right,
completely
right.
understand.
So, and again, I'm grateful for all the sensitivity that I have for people with
Mm,
mental illness, for criminals, for drug addicts, for prostitutes, for like for all kinds, for homeless people, for I see it all that God has used all of those things for me, even in ministry,
Mm.
counseling, and working with children. And he has built something, all the scripture, all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.
Mhm.
And I thought about that as I read this article, right? That like these things that Moses, the way his life was orchestrated. He's an orphan. He's given away his live.
Right.
He lives like it's. I always think it's like a young black boy, being born in America,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you're under threat all the time. Your life is under threat from the moment that you are born. We live in the most powerful country, but you are the most powerless person. Um, and so what do you do with that? And it has to be the coming together of so many things to
Mm.
make something valuable come from that. And so when we look at Moses, it's like God in his divine orchestration of his life, of the life of Moses, knew what the end was going to be. So he knew how to
Mm.
get them there, just like he knew how to lead them out of Egypt, right? He's always been leading things and putting things together in his life that they would work together for not his good necessarily, but for
Hmm.
the good, because he doesn't even make it into the promised land. But
Right.
it
Right.
works together for the
Right.
good, and he's part of the good, and that's why we're talking about him tonight, years later, right?
Right. Right.
So, because his legacy is divine, right? There's just this divine legacy that he has left us of faith and of not even so much what he did. The legacy of Moses is not even one of great faith as much as it is obedience and
Hmm.
just being available to the Lord for his
Right.
leading, right? For his
Right.
guidance. And he was almost like, okay, like what? Like, he was never like, I'll go, Lord, send me. He's
Right.
always just like, oh Lord, what next?
Right.
Oh,
I stutter.
with
Come on.
trepidation,
This.
right?
Why are you
With
asking me to do
trepidation
this?
and
Right.
everything, right?
I
Who
killed
wants
the
to do
guy. I killed the guy
right,
because I was trying to
right.
do, church, just trying to uphold. And then so, and I'm 80 years old. You're telling me to go
Yeah.
back to Egypt?
Yes.
They ran me out. You want me to go back? I'm 80 years old.
Yeah.
An
So
old
I think
man.
that what is so powerful about this is that we often tell our stories. And I tell people all the time, like when I counsel with people, I'm like, okay, so,
Mhm.
like, tell me your story, right? And everyone has a story. We all have a story and we can tell
Right.
it and it can sound
Right.
like a horror story. It can be terrible. And then I say, okay, can you tell me your story, but include God? Like, can you tell me where God was at every point? Retell the story and see if you can find God in your story, right? And then you're not so focused on a dead mother, you're more
Right.
focused
Right.
on the other
Right.
women who showed up, right? You're not so focused on a father who died prematurely. You're so focused on all the things that that the Lord led your father to leave in you, right?
Yes.
To instill in you. You're not so focused on the years of addiction or running the streets or whatever your life of sin was. You're more focused on God's provision and God's protection and God's guidance and God's the hedge, God's calling on your life and God using those things to build something in you. So all of those things, right? It's a whole different story when you tell it as a testimony than when you tell it with God rather than without God. And so we have to make sure, right? Because even Moses' story, it's like, oh, I was born and they wanted to kill me, but my mother kept me. Then my mother put me in the water. Then some strange people found me. Then they couldn't really even take good care of me. So they had to pay some woman, happened to be my mother,
Right.
right? Like it's a
To
terrible
feed me.
story.
Right. Exactly.
It's a terrible story. And then I had to go work for for them, for those people. And, my people were oppressed. It's a horror story.
Hmm.
But when you tell it as a God story, when you see God in it, it's a beautiful story. It's a miraculous story. It's
Mm.
an amazing story. And that's the story we're still telling.
Yes.
And so we have to all be careful about how we tell our story and make sure that we're telling the God story, not the personal human story, not the fear and the part where, woe is me. my mother left me, my father abandoned me, but like tell God's story.
I'm sitting here and I'm literally holding myself back from just jumping and shouting. In my worship service, I've included a testimony period,
Mm-hmm.
but you just articulated what I've been talking about and giving the opportunity for in a way that I have not done. So now you just gave me a way to articulate what our testimony period really is, right? It's the God in the story. It's the
Yeah.
God in the testimony. It's when you see God, when you can't, and I love this song, when you can't trace his hand, when you can't
Yes.
see the plan, trust
Yeah.
his heart. He's
Yes.
leading, he's guiding, he's showing you every step of the way. And he's never left you. And when you look back over your life, you'll see
And
that he's orchestrated everything. And all of those things, even the worst of things, were used and constructed and then blended for your benefit. So you are who you are because God never left your side. He's always been there. But if you
yeah.
don't see him, then it becomes your story. And your
Yeah.
story is a horror story. Your
Yeah.
story is
Mine is absolutely.
a horrible story.
Mine is absolutely a horror story for sure. People like,
Absolutely.
oh, this how you alive? I'm like,
Right.
I,
Right.
I tell you how I'm
A-
alive. There's only one way.
Arrests, somebody shooting at you, somebody stabbing you. I know because I'm talking about me. I still have a
Yeah.
mark on my hand that I used to block this knife that was coming from my heart. That if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get this hand up and get this stab wound here, it would
Yeah.
have gone here and you would have never met me.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? And you're drunk.
Yeah.
You're drunk, but you know the Lord had to put your hand there because I couldn't have done it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, you look back and you say, how I made it over.
Yeah.
It's because the Lord has been with you. He's never forsaken you. He's always been there.
But God,
But
it's
God,
a but God story. Moses' story, the story of Moses' life is a but God story. The story of his mother's life, right? I
yes,
mean, this is also a
yes.
testimony of his mother, right?
Mhm,
Like it's a beautiful testimony of a mother.
mhm,
I think about all the times if you're a parent, you're always releasing your children. You're
mm,
always releasing them, right?
mm,
I think about the first time you have them and then they got to come get them and take them away. You're like, wait, like where are you taking them? But you trusting like they got to that whatever they're doing with them to take care of them, it's necessary,
mhm,
and they're
mhm,
not going to drop them, they're not going to hurt them, they're not going to switch them, they're not going to right.
mhm, mhm,
The first time, one of the most painful moments is when you drop your children off at school for other people to take
mm,
care of for you, right? Like it's a story of release and faith.
mm,
Like no one that is not I couldn't breathe. Like I just could not breathe. When my oldest son, he went to a school. He went to a school for 10 years before he went to prep school. And then one of my other children were in the same school that he had left. He went to prep school at 14. He left home. Not only did I have a terrible little internal breakdown,
mhm.
right? Like the whole time he's telling me he wants to go and we're visiting schools and we're like, I don't feel good about any of this. But I didn't feel not good for him. I understood. I just didn't feel good for me.
Right, right, right.
In the first weeks, I'm going to drop my other son off at his old school. I'm literally walking through. I mean, it was like he died.
Mm,
But I understood I had to release him, right? Because people were going to do for him what I could not. He was going to get
right,
an education I couldn't give him. My
right.
daughters, when I would leave them at the door at the dance class, like I wasn't the dance teacher. They
Mm,
wanted to take dance. I had to let them go. My daughter was 10. She got a scholarship to dance at Ballet Hispanico, which is all the way on the west side. She had to get
mm.
on a crosstown bus. I was scared, but she went and got
How old was
herself a
she? How old was
scholarship
she?
at she was 10 when she applied for the scholarship and 11 when she got it.
Wow.
I was scared out of my mind
Mm,
to let her do that by herself every day, but she was determined and I didn't want to feed her. One of the things I'm very conscious of as a parent is not passing my fears on to my children.
right, right,
It's
right.
not that I don't feel them, I'm always afraid for them. right? But I try not to pass those things on to them. The other day, I'll give you just the most recent example. My youngest son is in finishing his third year of college, about to go into his senior year. He asked me if he could go to Italy for the summer. The boy does not speak any Italian. He has never been out of the country. He's been on a plane by himself one time without me. And I said, sure, go ahead and apply. And then what did he do? He went and got into a 10-week program. So then so then there's like, right, there's the fear and the letting go, like, go ahead and apply, go ahead and try. I'm not going to kill your dream, right? Like, I'm sure God has something for you there. If he opens the door, then I have to let you walk through it. Then the other day we're talking and I'm like counting the cost, like the plane fare, the tuition, the room and board, the books, the food, the like 10 weeks in another country. 2 weeks he's off. There's 10 days where he's just supposed to be traveling from country to country.
Right.
Or come back home and I got to send you back again, right? So, and I'm counting the cost, and he says to me, and I was getting nervous, like, I don't know if I could do this. It's almost $20,000. And he says to me, okay, Ma, forget it. I don't have to go there. And the Holy Spirit said to me, oh, yes, he does. Oh, yes, he does. And don't teach him to be afraid like that. Don't teach him that. Don't do that. Don't give him that.
Don't teach him that money is an object.
And to be afraid and to quickly feel like, oh, this is going to be a lot, or it's going to be hard, or it's a challenge. So we could just say no. Like, no. Keep walking, keep going, keep trusting, keep believing. God did not bring us this far. Right. And when he called me, he said he didn't get into one program. And I said, well, if you get into the other one tomorrow, if you get into the other one, you'll know that that's where God wants you to be. You don't have to make a choice. God made it for you. Right. So I've been talking to him this whole time, like, about faith, like with trying to increase his faith. And then here's an opportunity for us to live our faith in spite of our fear. And I'm like, a little scared, right? And I'm telling you, God just said, no, release him. Let him go and let him know he's going to be okay. And so, the mother in me is, my daughter, 23 years old, moved to LA. Like, what are you doing, girl? But she was like, I paid off my student loans and I saved $10,000. I'm going. I have a job. I have a roommate. I have money. Okay, it's a plane ride to come back home if it doesn't work out. I could not tell you all the things I know could go wrong, all the things I know could happen to her. She's been there for 7 years and she loves it, and she'll never come back to New York, probably.
Wow.
Right, but God has made a way because of what she does. She's back here once or twice a month.
Okay.
Right, like God has worked it out, like in spite of me, in spite of my fears, when I release things and trust the Lord, whether it's my children, whether it's my work, whether it's my, right? Like, God, he's the same God. When we say he is the same God yesterday, today, and forevermore, it's the same God that's going to let my son figure it out and find who he needs to find over there, and have surrogate parents or a teacher who takes an interest in him, or the people he's lived, like, something good is waiting for him. And I have to put him in the water, right? I got to send him across the water and let him do his life. Let him be where God wants him to be, so he can get what God has for him, and he can be who God created him to be. And if I just want to hold on to him, like, he may not get there that way, right? And so, and then I'm not being who God, right? Like, I'll be in here with all my kids living up under me because I'm afraid to I like my kids.
Right.
But we can all think about things we need to let go of, and things we need to trust God with, and ways that we need to listen to the leading of the Lord and not allow our fear to interrupt us. I preach and I always tell people, do not be afraid. In some way, shape, or form is in the Bible 365 times. It's not a coincidence. That means God understands that we feel fear every day.
Every day.
Satan will send it to us, whatever, however it comes, fear will show up for us all the time. And God is constantly reminding his children, fear not, do not be afraid, be anxious about nothing, right? Like in all your ways acknowledge, right? Like, I mean, he just doesn't, he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, right? Like which thing, and I ask myself that all the time, is this behavior like power, love, or sound mind, or is this fear? Right? It's so important that we're able to check ourselves against the word of God, that we're able to hold the word of God up to our attitudes, our behaviors, and how we talk to people, and say like, what, like, is this what is this what God said I'm supposed to be doing? Like, and like I said, when the Holy Spirit spoke to me, I'm sure she was like, don't let him go. Keep him another day. No, today. Put him in the water today. Today is the day to let him go. And she did. And what did God do? God sent him back.
Yep. And
in a way that she didn't have to be afraid anymore.
That's right. I mean, she was the nurse for the
Right.
baby
And got paid.
for it. Got paid for it. Now, one of the things I want
Won't
to
he
say
do
about
it?
all the time. One of the things I
Won't
want to
he?
share with you, and every time I hear you speak, every time you've been on, every time we converse, I notice the level of spiritual maturity that you speak from. And I know it didn't come overnight, but you speak from a perspective of, I'm not going to allow those negative, those fearful, anything that's not of God dominate my life. That even when I'm uncomfortable, I'm still going to move forward in faith. And
Yeah.
that's a position that it takes time to get there. Some people get there relatively quickly, but most of us do not. Most of us, it takes time. You got to climb that mountain. You got to overcome those hurdles. You got to understand, and you got to get to a point where you know that, quote unquote, all things are working together for your good.
Yeah. I think for me, um, I've always been like a risk taker, good, bad, for whatever, good or bad when I was in the world. Like, right, I'm a high roller, like I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. And you tell me this is how we're gonna play the game. I'm gonna play big and see if it's true or not. And when I got saved, it was the same thing. I'm like, if this is fake, I want to know now. And
Yeah.
if it's real, I want all of it. I want all the promises of God. I want all the benefits of being a Christian. I want all the blessings. I want blessings in every flavor. And when God says about tithing, try me, test me, and see what I will do. I'm like, all right, God. And I talk to God just like that. Like, I've been a tither since I was young, since I got saved at like 15, 16. And when I struggle with stuff, I'm like, all right, God, what'd you say? Like, it's on you now. Like, let's do this thing. What'd your word say? I pray the promises all the time. I preach the promises all the time. And I believe in discipline, right? Like, I am a very liberal person when it comes to loving other people, accepting other people. At my personal, like how I am myself, I'm very conservative because I believe in the disciplines that we are all. I believe in praying. I believe in fasting. I see the benefits of fasting. I see the benefits of prayer. I have fasted and seen, people got, the doctor said they're not making it out the hospital. I fast and they go home, right? I've just seen God do it. Time, brain bleeding. Okay, God, they're saying it's not. I'm gonna fast and you're gonna do what you do, and we're gonna, like, right? Like, I've just take God at his word and he hasn't disappointed. So then I just want more, and I just want to trust him some more. And I want to live this thing. I also want him to say one day, well done, my good and faithful servant. Like, you've been faithful. And it's just a few things, right? Like, I've been faithful over my work. I've been faithful over my church. I've been faithful over my finances. I've been faithful over my children to the best of my ability.
Right.
And it not perfect, but I really want what God has for me. And I think that, when I read the Bible and I see people move and be moved by the Spirit of God and take risk like this and trust the Lord, right? And like with fear, like not in like in spite of the fear, not without it, in spite of it. I'm just like, okay, well, that's what I have to do. I have to move with the fear, but I have to move.
Right.
Right. Every time Jesus dealing with people, he's like, like he telling people, get up and go, then you'll get your miracle. Like do something. And then, right. I think about how the promises of God. I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging bread, right? Like you have to be righteous, you have to be the seed. All the promises, I think about like we make promises to people. It's like, if you do this, then I'll do this, right? Many of God's promises are conditional. So I'm always like, all right, I want to be able to say I did my part. So come on, Lord, like let me watch your hand move this thing. And I want a good life that he makes for me. And if it has to be a bad life, I'll take that one too. But I know one of the things that I know is that when you are in God's will, even if it's painful, even if you lose somebody, even if you got to give something up, even if I share about my 4 children often, but I've had 5 miscarriages. And I will say those were very painful things. But it's like you just have to keep going and just know, God, like that wasn't the one. And I can grieve and I can be in pain and I can, but that wasn't the one. You did not give me that one. That wasn't meant for me. And again, you gotta let go and you gotta get up and keep going. And I have the 4 that I have, and losing children has made me love, appreciate, value, like all of that. The ones that I have, so much more than I think I would have. I mean, I don't know, right? But so much more than I think I would have or could have. I think I'm very sensitive to people who never have kids. I'm sensitive when women say I've had a miscarriage, and other people just keep talking. I'm like, no, that's pause. that's major. That's loss, right? But yeah, I want, and so even in those times, it's like, well, God, you said you're a healer. So heal me. And I don't mean physical. People say like, oh, I survived this, I survived that. I'm like, nope, the Bible doesn't say we survive things. The Bible says we're overcomers. I need to overcome this. I don't want to survive things. I want to be better for it. I want to be better for everything. I don't want to just get by. I don't want to just make it through. I don't want to, I want to take anything that's even bad. I want it all to make me stronger, wiser, better. Like, I don't want to be defeated. Where the Bible says we fight not for victory, from victory. So I'm a winner. Gotta live like one.
Well, that's a good place to segue. We got about a minute before we reach the top of the hour. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen. And I put the question out there for everybody to see, the question that we ask normally, so that everyone can become involved in this conversation. And I'm looking at some of the comments that's already being made. This is a dynamic conversation, y'all, and we're going to have even more of a dynamic conversation when we come back. But I want you guys to look at this question that I've placed on the table tonight. How would you describe what your mother couldn't do for you as the best thing she could have done for you? Now, it's I believe that in order to move forward, you have to ask questions. You have to live in a question. And so the question is being asked because I really want you to engage it. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking, but we're going to bring in some of your comments into this conversation so that you can be involved and then you can see what we see from sitting in our seats. And then we'll go from there. Is that okay? So I'm going to do a ghosting. I'm going to disappear for a second. You can do likewise, Reverend Wright, and then we'll come back in just a few minutes.
Matters of Faith family, please don't forget to support our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, for all of your church financial consulting needs. Contact us at jlorenr@jlr.llc. That's JLORENR@JLR.LLC, or simply give us a call, 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need your trustees to be trained, if you need evangelism training, or if you need to do a financial workshop, if you want to build, grow, or borrow money in order to grow your church, buy your church, please reach out to the JLR company, JLR Consulting LLC, at JLORENR@JLR.LLC, or call us 718-328-8096. It's not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book, you can purchase the book through my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15. If you want a hard copy, simply note that. If you want to get a hard copy and you do not use Cash App, please send a check or money order to Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's the JLR Company at P.O. Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get it as an ebook. Go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993-177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all black-owned restaurants and so much more all over the nation. That's right, Eat Okra. Now get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50, and you can get that subscription by going to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. Professional, compassionate, and family-friendly services in time of bereavement. John J. Fox & Sons Incorporated Funeral Services, proudly serving the Bronx community for 125 years. 718-733-9114. 718-733-9114. And don't forget, please subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. And now the article, The Best Thing She Could Have Done For You. That article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. It can also be found in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. It's also in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter, and coming soon, it will be in the Positive Community magazine, www.thepositivecommunity.com. Now, many of you have received the link directly to the article from me, and if you had not, then you can find it on all of my social media outlets. You can find it on my Facebook groups. You can find it on LinkedIn. You can also find it on Blue Sky. The best thing she could have done for you. Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, New King James Version. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, dubbed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maids to get it. The best thing she could have done for you. In the book of Exodus, the story is shared of Jochebed, a mother who realized she could not protect her son from a governmental decree that mandated that the first male child born to anyone in the Hebrew nation would be put to death. This was implemented to prevent the prophecy from coming true of a child being born who would free the Hebrew nation from the bondages of Egyptian slavery. Jochebed wanted only what was best for her son, so she devised a plan that resulted in her infant son being found by Pharaoh's daughter. It was her who gave the baby the name Moses, which means drawn out or saved from the water, and he was then raised in the palace as Pharaoh's grandson. It was the child Jochebed gave away who stood at the burning bush and spoke to God face to face, who received the 10 Commandments from God, who went to Pharaoh and told him that the Lord said, "Let my people go." It was the child Jochebed gave away, who led the nation of Israel out of Egypt, who held out his staff and saw God part the Red Sea, who brought the nation, the Hebrew nation, to the border of the promised land. It was the child Jochebed gave away, who was the one who led the Hebrew nation to their freedom. Sometimes, the best thing a mother can do for their child is to give them away. It may sound cruel, mean, even unnatural, but the God I serve is the one who determines what's best for us and works all things for our good when we love him and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. We are told in the 10 Commandments to honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Exodus 20:12. If your mother was not able to provide, whatever you may think about her, know that even in her inability to provide, she wanted only what was and is best for you. When you carefully look back over your life, you will find that whatever your mother could not do for you may be the best thing she could have done for you. Blessed Mother's Day. And now here's my question tonight. How would you describe what your mother couldn't do for you as the best thing she could have done for you? Let me ask that question again. How would you describe what your mother couldn't do for you as the best thing she could have done for you? I know that you know something about her, but let me clarify some things about her that you may not know. When you step through the doors of Church of the Resurrection, you meet her in all of her splendor. She is community-minded, she's family-oriented, and she has a sense of fashion that is second to none. But more than that, she is truly a woman of God who does those things that glorify God, edify his people, terrify Satan, and justify her faith completely. So Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me for the second half of this show this evening, this production, my friend and my guest, Reverend Kimberly Mabry Wright. So we're back. And so I put some pictures up. You want to tell us about them? I like the one with you and the congregation because that's who you really are. You're like in the midst of the people, your people pastor. And I like that about you. And then you're also family. So I put your family up there. I think I got everybody. Did I get everybody? Is everybody in there? You're muted.
Yes, they're all there. I have 4 of them. There are a bunch of other ones that I help raise, but those are my 4 biological babies. So yeah, that's about 4 years ago and about 6 years ago. And the other one though is recent. That was the day before Mother's Day. That was just this Saturday with my daughters.
Got it.
My older daughter has a nonprofit for young, ambitious women of color. It's a networking organization in 4 cities. She has about 450 members now, I think.
Wow.
And so they had a brunch, from a mother-daughter brunch, and that's what that photo is of myself and my 2 daughters. And then, the other ones are me. Yeah. And the 2 guys are my boys. There's one with the baseball hat is my oldest. He's 35, and the younger one is he is now 21. He's the one on his way to Italy, I hope.
Yes. Well, praise God. I thank you for that, just sharing that. And I thank you for allowing me to put your history up on the wall.
Thank you.
So that everybody could see it. So I think I can stop that share now. We can go back to talking. I wanted to share some of the things that were said. I'm looking for more comments because I know that you guys have more comments out there. So let me see what I've gotten so far, and let me just have you comment on what has been said. So let's see. Just bring this up a little bit. There we go. All right. So I got one of the first comments is that someone said, "What a wonderful talking point that I can empathize with." So that's what Sinclair Mott said. She made that comment, and then Cheryl said, "Oh my God, I'm right here, right now, feeling the fear, and got to move anyway." So those are the 2 comments that we have so far. So we're going to let them sort of wallow in the question. And let's go back and let's pick up where we left off, because you were talking about some things that I thought were very, very important. So in terms of, walking in your faith. So why don't we pick up right there, and you can just kind of jump in any way you like.
Again, I think just thinking about this, thinking about the scripture, there's so many things that are happening in the scripture that make us wonder, am I willing to do what feels crazy, what feels difficult, what feels afraid, like fearful to me, what makes me feel afraid? Am I able to do it like trusting in God? I don't know. I often ask people, how do you know you're in the will of God? Like, how do you know that what you're doing
That's a
is
good question.
God's will?
That's a good question.
Right? Because in this, it's like, why were any of them doing the things they were doing? Like, why didn't she give her baby up? Then if she kept him, why didn't she try to keep him longer? Why did she put him in the water? Why did the woman who saw him tell? Why did, like why? But I think that when you're in God's will, often you feel like, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, or you feel like, well, I know it looks crazy. I know it may seem crazy to everyone else, but I know it, I know this is the right thing. And you can feel like you're in uncharted territory, right? You can feel like, I don't know what's going to happen when I do this. I think about, like, the building that I built. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I had no pastor, no members, no money, no, like, right? I'm like going to meetings with contractors and developers, and I'm sitting in a meeting talking about like a $12 million building. Like, Lord, okay, it's you and me here, but you're everything. So it doesn't matter how many of them are on the other side of this table. This is your church, your ministry, your, like, right? And I mean, things have been terrible sometimes, but I've known, like, this is God's will. And so there's a peace. There's a peace. There's been times I'm like, okay, God, it looks like it's about to shut down. If you shut it down, if you make it so that it is no more, I'll have peace. I won't take it personal. I'll know there's something else for me. So I don't know, but I do know that all the players in these women were right where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, doing exactly what God intended. It's all part of prophecy, right? And it all leads us to where we are today. It leads him to lead the people, and it positions him in such a way that while even he talks about stuttering, he was in a position to be heard.
Yes.
Because people knew who he was on both sides. Right. He had to talk between both people, and the Egyptians and the Hebrew people, and he was the right person to do that. Whether he stuttered or, whatever his impediment was, but he was the right person.
I'm glad you said that. And I want you to unpack that a little bit, because some people have been placed in positions, right, that they are positioned to give voice to two sides. God's grace has put them there, but they don't feel adequate. They don't feel that they're the ones, but they're the only one who has those capabilities. Have you ever seen that? I mean, even in some of your experiences personally?
Oh, personally, I feel that way all the time. I always feel, I always feel, it's very funny you ask this, because it's what I've been wrestling with lately. And I've been coming to terms with it. Now I'm like tired of wrestling with it, because lately I'm just like, okay, enough of this. Like this feeling like an imposter syndrome. The same way Moses, first of all, I think it's very funny whenever anybody is eager to be in ministry. Like when people say like, oh, I should be preaching, I'm like, that's not usually how that feels when you get called, right? Like I know Jonah, I know Moses, I know, right? Like it's even Jesus, when his mother, when they tell him to turn the water, like do something about the wine situation, he's like, no, it's not my time. Like no one wants to do this. When he's ready to go to the cross, he's like, Father, take this cup. But if it be that, right? Like
Right.
anyone I know
Right.
who is doing this because God has led them to do this, that nothing in them wants to do this. This is a complete surrender, right? And it has to be. This has to be a surrender, because if you are doing this in your own flesh, in your own will, in your own desire, your own passion, your own whatever, your own understanding, you can't depend on God enough. You just won't. And so often, I'm a woman. I've been in ministry 34 years now.
Mm.
I am a woman. I'm an African American woman. I'm in a predominantly white uh, denomination.
Denomination. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm in a Spanish community. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, like apostolic. Like I thought when I had visions of me preaching, and what was I doing there? Look at me, right? Like I come out of Refuge Temple. That's where I got saved.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about like the spot in the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm so grateful for that experience, because of that I have the discipline that I have. I believe in
Mm.
prayer. I believe in fasting. I believe in, I believe in all of it. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in speaking in tongues. I believe, I have faith from growing up in that I think, I don't know if I would have gotten it anywhere else. And if I
Mm.
didn't have it, I wouldn't walk in this calling. I wouldn't have lasted. Um, and then I just think, like, God is just always moving. God is just always moving things where he wants them to be. And you have to be dependent on him. So I think a lot of us walk around feeling, I'm in rooms all the time with men. I'm in rooms all the time, white men, black men, like wherever I'm at, I'm like usually the only woman or one of few. And I've had to get comfortable with that.
Mm.
I've had to get comfortable. Now I have to get comfortable being the oldest person in the room sometimes, because ministry is like young people now. It's not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
like when I was growing up. How do you pastor and you're not even 50 years old? Like
Yeah.
who pastors and they're not grandparents? Like that's just strange. But today I'm a lot of times I work with a lot of church planters and I'm older. I'm a lot older. Um, and I just had to stop feeling like Moses and like Jonah and like everyone else. Like I don't belong, it's not real, it's not true, or I don't want to, or it's not gonna work out, or like just day by day, just like his mama, just day by day. And when he tells me to move, I move. Like he tells me to do it different, tell me to keep doing what you're doing, I'll do it. Tell me to do something different, I'm gonna do something different. But it's that kind of like leaning and dependency and trusting in the Lord that we all have to figure out how to do. If you want to really live inside of this thing.
Mm.
You can go to church for years and be a spectator.
Mm.
You can worship. You can just love worship. You can love church. You can love your pastor. You can love all the things and miss God and this faith walk completely.
Mm.
You can miss, I mean, you could do this for decades and it's a social club. It's therapy, it's motivation, it's all those other things. It's
When you
entertainment.
when you decide, and I'm speaking from my own experience, when you decide to step into this calling that you have in ministry, you really don't know what you're getting into. At least I didn't. I mean,
Right.
I saw what was before me. I saw the sort of the blueprint, but that wasn't my blueprint.
Right.
It was another blueprint. It was somebody else's blueprint. It was other person's way. But the Lord has a unique blueprint for each and every one of us. And when you say yes to that calling and you step into that world of reality, your the way the Lord uses you is going to be different from anybody else that he's ever used before. Like you said, sitting across the table with these developers and these engineers and architects and all these people who do this for a living, but you're sitting there And you're saying, yeah, but me and my God makes the majority. And you believe that in your heart. So it didn't
Yeah,
matter that they were men. It didn't matter they have experience. It didn't matter that they had law degrees. It didn't matter if they had
money,
engineering degrees.
a
None of
lot
that
of money,
mattered. We right,
politicians in their
all
pockets.
everything, but you know what? This is the Lord's work, and this is what's going to happen.
And you want to know what was also sitting with me the whole time I sat there for 3 years as our church got built? I started college to be an
Mm.
architect.
Mm.
And look at you, God. You threw me a bone. Like I get to build a building and I get to do it for you. And I fought with God. Like I was in college, I finished, I got one degree, I got another degree, I was doing another degree. And God was like, literally said to me, if you get one more degree and it doesn't have anything to do with me, when I was in seminary, they called me the reluctant Messiah. Like this is the last thing I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I did not like church people. I'm not a ritualistic person. I don't like preaching. I don't like Sunday comes way too fast for me. Um, there's nothing about this that in my flesh I wanted to do. Nothing.
Mhm.
What I wanted to do in my spirit was I wanted to be faithful to God.
Mm.
That's what I wanted. And so it took me doing a lot of things that I have not wanted to do over these years. It's not the company I wanted to keep. It's not the
Mm.
people I would have called my friends. It's not the life I would have chosen for myself or my children.
Mm.
But it wound up being the best thing. All of them are faithful. It wound
Right,
up being,
right,
I was
right.
very afraid of raising like PKs.
Mm.
But, I did it different. I did it differently. God led me to do this very differently and to do it my way, as you said, and I say to people, I'm like, nope, that church you're talking about, that when you want to tell me what to do, that church is down the block around the corner. It is
Mm.
different here. You're right. Because if God didn't need more of the same.
Right,
He needed this thing. And
right.
so if you need that, you can go get that. That's there. But if you need something different, and this is what God is serving up in this
Right.
house.
Right.
So,
And that's what I like about the Lord is that the Lord doesn't look and give a cookie cutter approach to
right,
his relationship with his people.
right.
He creates new things. He's doing new things all the time. The message is the same, but the delivery
Yeah,
becomes different.
right.
And one of the things I saw in your church years ago, and it impressed me so much, is that, you would do a community feeding. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just an ordinary community feeding. You would have people come in and they literally would sit at tables with tablecloths and they would be served by youth who would cater to them. I mean, cater to them. I thought that was the most beautiful, the most elegant experience that people can have because they were made to feel like they really meant something, and they really do. But you gave them that, and I know that because of it, the people responded to that kind of love.
And you want to know how that happened, or the,
Mm.
the the genesis or the roots of
Mm.
that?
Yes, yes, please.
I grew up very poor and very hungry
Mm.
all the time. Hungry, like when people say I'm hungry, I'm like, you're not hungry. I know, and I rarely say I'm hungry because I know what hunger feels like.
Mm.
Then I happened to marry somebody whose mother owned one of the most beautiful, most expensive restaurants in New York
Mm.
City. That was one of
Mm.
the most successful restaurants for almost 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a lot of people could not afford to take their families there to
Mm-hmm.
eat. And then I would so I had a love for hospitality and for feeding people. But then I would see the way church feeds people is either you're charging people for dinners because it's fundraising, is why we eat at church,
Mm-hmm.
or you are like, doing soup and sandwiches, and everyone's doing the best they can. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't
Mm-hmm.
right. It's
Right.
just
Gotcha.
that none of that was for me. And so I said, our community also has a bunch of family shelters. There's like
Mm-hmm.
4 family shelters right near us. And the neighborhood was also changing. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I know how to put tablecloths on tables. I know how to put fresh flowers. It's not really that expensive like people would think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I think people should be served. Families don't get to go out to dinner much. So we're going to have a 3-course meal, and people can bring their families. Like a family can have dinner, and like kids would get like a coloring book and crayons, and when they checked in, and
Mm-hmm.
and then we had waiter service. I did not want people standing on a line. It wasn't buffet. It was a meal. It was like a 3 to 4-course meal. And what do you need? How can we help you? How can I serve you? And then we would stop. And I didn't do bait and switch. We didn't invite you to dinner for you to be told you have to come to church, or
Mm-hmm.
or for
Mm-hmm.
me to
Mm-hmm.
start speaking in tongues over your life, or any of that. They would say this. We would stop for 2 minutes and say, "This is Pastor Kim, and if you would like prayer, there are people here who will pray for you. That's it. Enjoy your evening, and we hope you come back again next month." Because I think I also wanted people to come into the church and have a different church experience. That
Right.
was also very important to me.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
feel welcomed and feel cared for. It wasn't an event where you had to get dressed up. We would literally go out at 4 or 5 o'clock, give out 300 invitations, and feed 150 people.
Mm.
That means 1 out of 2. Like, if that is not like God had some kind of anointing thing going, how do you go out and invite people to come into the church and 1 out of 2 people come?
Hmm.
I still am like, how does that? I don't know how that happens, other than it was God's desire, and we were doing what pleased the Lord. And the food was so good.
Hmm.
I mean, it was good.
Hmm.
But it's just, and again, I've never seen it done before that. I've never seen it done since then. But God prepared me for that.
Right.
I've never wanted to own a restaurant. I didn't want to own the restaurant. My husband owned 7 restaurants. I never wanted to own a restaurant. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even like
Mm-hmm.
going, I didn't help him. I didn't do any of that. But when I came into ministry, I knew the power of that, and I knew I knew the mechanics of it. So I used it, I utilized it, and it worked. It was very effective.
Do you still do that now?
I don't, we haven't done it since COVID.
Mm.
Um, So now we eat big meals on Sunday. But everybody, we'll get back to it. What I think we're going to do is, I think our children are going to begin a food pantry, because I really think that the cost of groceries is just
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that our children need to be serving more. I have a thing about poor people and taking and not giving, and not being given the value of service, when you're young. Um, and so I think our preschool is going to start, our 4-year-olds in our preschool, they will start a food pantry
So
probably in
let me let
September.
me let me dovetail on that, because you just mentioned the 4-year-olds and preschools and stuff like that. Talk about for a moment what you were able to do with that, because again, as we talk about the best thing she could have done for you, you are nurturing these preschoolers and early childhood people as almost like a surrogate mom
Mhm.
in the community. And then you're expanding that, not just to give them an educational base, but you're also giving them a faith base.
Yeah.
That that's
So,
that's impressive to me.
yeah. So part of what happened in the neglect in my life is that I didn't start school till the middle of first grade. I was never immunized. I was very sick as a child. It was a lot of neglect. And so then when my mom died, school was like, my home was like chaos.
Mhm.
And school, there were like 9 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Bronx.
Mhm.
And school just felt like a refuge, and it made sense. There was structure. Things just made sense. You teach me something, I can learn it. I can show you that I learned it. We can move on, learn something else. I loved when I learned to read. Like, there were so many things. And then we moved to Manhattan, and my teachers became like my surrogate parents. They were the best thing that ever happened. I'm still very close to my elementary school and middle school teachers. I was just
Mm.
at someone's 70th birthday the other, like 2 weeks ago. Um, they're all my friends on Facebook. I still see them. We still meet up. We have lunch, whatever. They were very instrumental, and I learned the power. I went to a very good school, and I learned the power of education. It literally saved my life. Um, And so, again, in God's infinite wisdom, my aunt invited me to a church where the pastor had an after school like he was like, hey, I went to church and he was saying like, oh, if people could volunteer, like take your 2 weeks vacation this summer and we'll be able to run a summer camp. And I thought, is this poor little old man crazy? Like, who is going to take their 2 weeks vacation to volunteer with some little bad kids for the summer? And I came back the next week just to see what would happen. And he's like, okay, so we'll be able to register like 50 to 60 children because we have a full 8 weeks of volunteers to cover the summer. I'm like, what kind of people are these people? Like, what kind of, didn't happen in the church I grew up in for sure. And so I started volunteering. And then I had just had my son and I wanted to homeschool him. And so he said, do you want to help with the preschool, develop the preschool? And I had never gone to preschool. I had never seen a preschool. I had never been inside of a preschool, nothing. But I was like, okay, what would I do if I kept him home? Right? I would take him out a lot. I would cook with him. I would do art with him. I would do all kind of. So we really created our preschool. And the other teacher also had a child and like had two of kids there. And so we were like, all right, what are we doing with these kids? She was just getting off of drugs. I was just getting off of drugs. We didn't know what we were doing, except we knew we wanted to do this and we wanted it to work. We wanted to give kids something we did not have. We wanted to give our children our presence and our love and our like, and so that's how it started. Those kids got older, they became after school kids. There was actually a person in our church who was smoking crack, and the grandmother came to church. The woman had 6 kids, and the grandmother took them in foster care through kinship care. And she came to church one Sunday and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do with these kids. And my pastor said, don't worry, we will pick them up after school. We will do their homework with them. We will feed them a hot meal. And when you get them, all you have to do is bathe them and put them to bed. We will take care. We got, you're not by yourself. We got this with you. So then we had to develop a whole after school program and put some structure and so like, and then there were people trying to get off of drugs in the church. He's like, well, you need to be busy all day. So let's go. You're working, you're helping, and then those people went back to school and got degrees. And I kept going to school and getting degrees. And the kids kept growing up and we needed more programs. And everything just developed very organically. But God prepared us, right? Like he just really prepared all of us in different ways. And our motivations were different, but we were all just trying to hold on, get better, be faithful, and do good.
Your pastor, this very practical guy,
Yes.
that saw a need and just made it happen.
Every need he
saw. Didn't care about the qualifications. We just gonna do them. You just bring them to me, and we'll take care of them.
But he too, like, got off of drugs. He was facing attempted murder charges. He was looking at life in prison. And the judge said, I couldn't sleep last night. God told me to give you a chance. I'm going to send you up into the hills with these people, these crazy people in the mountains, and send him to Sister Roberts and Billy Roberts from the Soul Saving Station. And they taught him how to read and how to write. And he stopped drinking and stopped using drugs. And then he came to New York to testify and never left. And so he also never graduated from elementary school, but went to Columbia University and had a real value for education as well. And didn't see, he would preach with like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Bible. Like it all had to make sense in real time. The Bible has to make sense today for you and for me in East Harlem, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, it has to, in Puerto Rico, it needs to make sense today. It's relevant. If it's not, then Jesus died. He's dead. He's not alive. And the Bible's an old book that isn't full of truth. So
very interesting. Cheryl says, that I understand, being faithful to God, that is it. And the only thing that keeps me going when I want to throw up my hands.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, the practicality of ministry always, always intrigues me because I see far too many of our churches and our faith leaders and others talking a good talk, but when it comes to putting the boots on the ground, they just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
And that always disturbed me.
That's why I have a small church.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm like, again, the other churches down the block around the corner, if all you want to do is sing and shout, that exists already. I don't need to duplicate what already exists. There are people who won't go there. They need a place too.
Mm-hmm. And that's
So
true. I mean, it's interesting because I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, being the surrogate mom and dad, being the person who steps in and fills a gap, you're not trying to fill the gap that they essentially left. You're just trying to sort of build a bridge between where they were and where they're going. And so that
yeah,
bridge may look completely different than what it would have looked like had their quote unquote natural mom, natural dad been there building that bridge. Because I think about myself and I look at the bridge that was built, I mean, we didn't go to church. I went to Sunday school. I didn't go to church. I went to church when my mom, after my mom died, my father found a little small Pentecostal church, Morning Star Pentecostal Church, down 132nd Street, was
Morning Star.
133rd Street, between 7th and 8th Avenue, and it was a little storefront church. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to church. You want to go?" I was like, "No, I don't want to go to church. Are you crazy? I'm 16 years old, 17 years old. No, I don't want to go to church." But all of my friends liked my dad. So when Mr. Russell said he's going to church, I said, we'll go with you, Mr. Russell. So he piled all these kids up in his station wagon and drove them all, got my cousins and everybody going to church with my father. So
Mm-hmm.
I ain't got nobody to hang out with anyway. So I get in the car too and I go down to church and I come to find out that I really like this thing. This is amazing. I really like this thing. And so my
Mm-hmm.
dad, in his very quiet demeanor, sort of set me up. Now, who would have thought that, in short order, he would be expired too? He would die too. But
Yeah,
he
something to
laid a
hold on to.
foundation, right? Now, who would have thought that through all of that, that the call of ministry would be in my life?
The question that you're asking your audience today, um, how would you describe what your mother couldn't do?
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of when Joseph says, what they meant for evil, God meant for my good. And I think that's really the question.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
not that anyone meant anything for evil, but what can sometimes be perceived as the very worst thing? You
Mm.
know, again, when you tell the God story,
Right.
you know, um, then it's like, oh, I see, right? If you can tell the story of Joseph, and it's a horrific story.
Mm-hmm.
You take God out of it, you add God to it, and He's able to say,
Right.
like, I'm good.
You plan for good. What you plan for
Yeah.
evil, God meant for good.
And not only
And
am
I
I good,
got you. I got
not
you.
only am I good, but I forgive you
Right.
and I got you.
I
And you
got
don't have, guess what? You don't have to be afraid,
Right. Right.
right? Because not only am I thriving, like I have integrity,
Right.
right? Because all these things, people lying on me, people accusing me, people mistreating me, people trying to sell me, people
Yep.
trying to kill me,
Yep.
right? People being jealous of me and envious of me, all of that, like,
People not speaking up for me, the whole nine
right,
yards,
right.
everything.
But God's voice has carried me, God's leading has carried me, and what the world, what people, whatever what they meant for evil, God meant for good. And
Mm.
so I think that, we can, and I think we also live in an age where we just blame everybody. It's like such a thing to blame your parents for everything. And to tell such a sad story. But I tell my kids all the time, you can blame me up until the point where you blame me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're conscious enough to blame me, you are conscious enough to take responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry for whatever you think I did wrong. Now it's on you. Go fix it.
Mm.
You go get it right. Don't live in that forever. You go get it right.
Yeah.
So I think again, it's like it wasn't his legacy to see people live in fear, but he was afraid when God called him.
Mm.
Thank goodness he had also seen someone walk in faith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so important that we're able to see the faithfulness of other people, that we see that faith has feet, right? It has hands and feet. And um and so again, I think the question is sometimes like, are there times when you just thought the most terrible thing your mother or your father or anybody ever did to you actually turned out that God could use that thing for you? And it's not to say it wasn't bad. My
Right.
mother's death was
Exactly.
horrible. My
Exactly.
mother dying, I was 7.
Mm.
There's no way it, like, I can't say it was a good thing,
Right.
but God used it.
He worked
He
it out for good.
extracted things from that
Yes.
today, every single day, something good in my life because of who God made me, because of what I understand, because again of my sensitivities to other, my compassion, my faithfulness, my independence, my like that does not say I was not hurt, I wasn't damaged, I wasn't just like,
Right. Right.
I was all of those things, but God, and so everybody I think has some kind of but God testimony. We should. I mean, do we not think God makes a difference in our lives? I think we know He does. Is there nothing we've ever thought like, oh, my parents got that wrong, but God? My parents weren't there like they should have been, or they didn't do what they should have done, according to whatever my expectations or what the neighbors were doing or what I needed or what I deserved. Because, some of us deserve more than what our parents were able to give us.
Mm-hmm.
But God, in His infinite wisdom and His extraordinary grace and His mercies that are new every single day in our lives, right? We survived it. And then what are we doing now?
Mm.
Right? What are we doing now? And again, I just feel like it's time for healing. There's no more time. Blaming is so wasteful. It's just wasteful. It's like, okay, they did it. And what? If you're stuck in blaming people when they victimize you, then they're still victimizing you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's
You
no
know,
question about that.
if
No.
you are still living in the consequence and pain of what someone either did or did not do, because
Right.
abuse and neglect are both terrible things. But if you are living in the consequences of that, then they may as well still be doing whatever to you.
Right.
And if Joseph's brothers would have found him angry and bitter and broken and subjected to suffering in any kind of way, it would be as if what they did had long lasting effects and they were
Well,
still affecting him.
and interestingly enough, it lingered more with them
Yes,
than Joseph, because they thought for sure, once they found out that it was Joseph, that he was going to retaliate against them.
because it's what they deserved. What they didn't
Exactly.
understand was
Exactly.
mercy because they had
Right.
no mercy.
Had no mercy.
You can't give people what you don't have. You don't expect it. You
Right.
expect for people to do what you would do,
Right.
and they were merciless.
Right. And
They
that's
were
interesting
evil.
because that was what you just said. You can't get what you never had.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get what you don't have. That's one of the things I said in my sermon on yesterday. You can't
Mm-hmm.
give what you don't have, because it's true. You can, you can give. Well, let's put it this way. You can't give what you don't have no more than you can come back from a place that you've never been.
Right.
So, and you're absolutely right. By the way, Daryl said something interesting. He says, my mother did not take us kids to church. I did not grow up knowing him like that. But because we got to know each other without tradition, helped me to know God for real.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
That is good, right? Daryl's one of my frequent. He's my regular guest, but he's been my guest for many occasions, like you have. And I like his comments because it really does kind of hit the point. Because tradition. I was talking with a young man today. He's an apostle, and we met someone as we came out of a meeting, and she says to him, "Oh, you're a religious man." He said, "No, I'm not a religious man. I'm a holy man." He said, because religion has connotations to it.
Yeah. And
Jesus
God
didn't like
said, be
religious.
holy, for I am holy. He didn't say be
Exactly.
religious.
Right. He didn't say anything about being religious.
Yeah.
Religion can get you in trouble.
Yeah.
So be holy, for God is holy. And it's
Amen.
interesting. We just had a quick, brief moment like that of meeting, but you see, it only takes a minute. It only takes a second, just like
It
that.
sure does. It
That's all
surely
it takes.
does.
All it takes. But you can miss it if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You can miss it.
Yeah. And if you're not attuned
Right.
to what God is trying to do at the moment.
That's interesting. I'm excited about this. I was hoping that I got more comments because I really wanted to bring in some other comments and so on and so forth. But that question, and by the way, I asked another question. What is your but God story?
Yeah.
So what is your but God story? Because when I look back over my life, I know every single story that I have is a but God story.
For sure.
Everything,
For
everything,
sure.
everything, everything. I mean everything. Every story in my life is a but God story.
Yeah.
Had it not been for God on my side, I have no idea where I would
Where
be.
I would be. Yeah. I think when I think about when I look at my kids and who they have become, it is so far
Mm,
from the life that I had or knew
mm,
or was exposed to. When I look at how they are built and shaped, their confidence,
mm,
their emotional intelligence, their level, their degree of faith. Um, I know that um, it is inspired. It's like the generation has just changed so much. Like they
mm,
will never know the life that I knew. They will never understand it. They can't identify with it. They don't relate to it. It's just not who they are because God has done such an incredible thing in helping to form and shape them. So
mm,
much so that it's like, again, just one generation to the next. It
mm.
is so miraculous to me.
That was the topic of last week's.
Was
Uh,
it?
yeah, from one generation to another.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it has been every time I look at my daughters and I'm just like sometimes I try to give them advice, like I try to say like, oh well, did you think that? Like, of course I thought of that, mom. But whatever. Like then they just have an answer. And I'm like, oh,
Mm,
okay, that would have been a stretch for me, but okay, girl, you just go ahead with yourself. I think it's important, it's so again, I think it's so important for us to be able to
mm,
look at our lives and see that God went before us,
mm.
that God was with us, that God comes after us. That's why, we're not exposed. Everything we do is not exposed.
Right.
Um, but that he really does provide and protect, that he's sovereign, he's loving, he's gracious, he's merciful to us. And he's a healer, he's a waymaker,
Mm,
and whether he does it with our mother, father, through people, or in spite of people. Like I just feel like God has worked in spite of so many things. He's used all those things and again just extracted good from them. Um, people ask me all the time, how do you know there's a God? I'm like, I'm not in a straitjacket,
mm.
like I'm clothed in my right mind. That's how I know there's a God. Because
Right.
people are not okay who've been through far less.
Hmm.
And I love the Lord. I know he's healed my heart because I should be bitter and angry and frustrated and hateful and selfish and scared and mean. And I'm so glad I'm not. but I didn't do that to myself or for myself. God did that. And we just, whether it's our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, our financial well-being, like whatever it is, like we have to know like God is how we get to anything good. Anything that is good, it is only because of the Lord. And anything in us that is good, right? In me dwells no good thing unless there is God. The last thing I just wanted to say about this thing is this whole idea of adoption. Because as I was reading, I'm like, yeah, this thing of adoption, I feel like it's also written because we are adopted by God. And so we've grown up in a time where now adoption is very normal and it's loving, and it's, open and all of that. But we grew up in a time where it was embarrassing and shameful and secret. Everybody, if it happened, it was a big secret and you didn't tell, and but our relationship to God when we're saved is an adoption. And it's a choice, and it's an orchestration of the Lord, and it's a following and leading, and it's a relation, it becomes a relationship of reciprocity. And so that too is what we see here, that God uses someone not biological, again, not just happenstance, not just whatever, right? To step in and do his will and his work. And that relationship is very powerful. It saves him. And that's what happens when we get saved, right? It's like we get this new father.
Yeah.
We get a new father to take over, to lead us and guide us and do all the things that our earthly father either wouldn't or couldn't do for us. So whatever we're mad about, Father's Day is coming. That was Mother's Day. Father's Day is coming. We don't need to get there and still be mad. We need to see that God, right? Like if you've had a horrible father, then find Jesus, because find the Lord so that you get a new father. And he will parent you. And I don't say that like I mean it. That is who has been.
There's a lot of people who never knew their fathers. You mentioned that yourself, and didn't have the experience of having their dads around, and that can be traumatic. But at the same time, God is always that but God moment. He's always provided you with that male leadership if you would to accept it. I often tell people, I say, listen, if you never knew your dad, just adopt, the prophet, I like to call him Koheleth, adopt Koheleth, adopt the wisest man that ever lived. Read his proverbs every single day because they're rich in knowledge. He wrote to his son. This is Solomon I'm talking about. He wrote to his sons and gave them instruction. How do you live this life? How do you get through day by day? And it's very practical, very, very systemic, very matter of fact, a lot like your pastor. Very practical. You see a need, fill it. Don't worry about, well, the people, just do what you can do. And that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And by the way, Cheryl says, my father died when I was 2 months old. God has been my father all my life.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's been for me.
Mm-hmm.
That I identify with that so much because I feel like, I didn't really have an earthly father, and not one that wanted me anyway. But when I got saved, I learned like I am the apple of his eye.
Right.
I've learned not to ever, that as a young woman, I never had to act desperately, not for money, not for attention, not for not for anything. I always tell my daughters, don't you ever make a decision out of desperation.
Right. Right.
Don't you ever. God is your father, and he will always make a way for you, and he will always protect you, and you are never desperate for anything. And lean on him. Their father has passed. Look to him and lean on him and know him and listen to his voice and have the discipline that he's called you to have, and know that you are part of a royal priesthood. You are a chosen generation. Those things are not small, they're not lies, and they come from your father being your father, God being your father. And know that he'll provide, he'll protect, he'll take care of, you have to know those things to be true, and he will speak to you and you can listen, and he, um, but it's been so different. That has been such a journey for me, to not feel, to have to grow up without parents and to learn that I am not in the world by myself. Because it has felt like, I got to figure it out. I got to make it happen. I got to, like, been very like hyper independent my whole life. And I've had to learn how to say, no, I don't have to figure it out. I have to ask God what he wants for me to do. I don't have to make everything happen. I have to ask God, what does he want to happen? I don't have to know. I have to ask God for his wisdom, his knowledge. So pray for understanding, right? So those things have really um formed me too, because when you ask, like, what did someone, they couldn't do something for me, and how was it good for me? Well, what they couldn't do for me, it made me depend on God all, because
Mm,
again, I
right.
grew up feeling like I'm out here all by myself,
Mm.
only to learn that I could skip over the asking parents for help and looking to them, straight to God. That's all I have. And it's a great way to live.
It is. It is. And I tip my hat to you, and I'm glad that you're here. By the way, we're almost out of time. So let me take a few minutes and just close us out. But I really want to thank you from the very depths of my heart. And thank you for just being so transparent tonight. It's been wonderful. I'm going to skip some of the things I was going to say, and I'm just going to go right down to the fact that I'm so very blessed that you accepted my invitation to be my guest tonight. I could not imagine the depth of our conversation and the way you took us to levels I could never have guessed we would go to. There was a special blessing here tonight, and you were it. You were the blessing. And one thing has been made very clear to me. You have desired what was best for your children and have been a mother of provision, which is the best thing you could have done for them. What you didn't get, you have provided for your children, and you've also given them the space to be who they are and who God created them to be. I appreciate the time you took out of your schedule to be with the Matters of Faith family and for your transparency and your testimony. And I love what you told me about testimonies. I'm going to make sure that we do that. Tell your story, include God, and find out where God was in your story. I'm going to talk about that a lot from now on. And this is the third time you've been on Matters of Faith. You do know that, right? The first was
Yeah.
April 11th in 2022, and we talked about if only they meant it. And then on September
Mm,
30th, 2024, human nature, back at you. And
yeah.
today, I just feel blessed. I'm just totally blessed because of you. Now, do me a favor, plan on coming back, check your calendar, give me a date. Give me a Monday, and then we'll make it happen so we can plan it out. And we can
Okay.
even talk about a particular subject matter, and I'll write it and we'll just talk about it.
Okay.
All right. Now, listen, don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, which are my companies for all your church financial needs. 718-328-8096. That's my office number, 718-328-8096. You can email us at JLORENR, JLaurenR at JLR.LLC. It's not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. And everything that we talked about tonight was kingdom building. It wasn't castle building, it wasn't castle making, kingdom building. Matters of Faith, the book, and my Cash App. I've been talking about it, but this is the book. If you don't have a copy of this book, you need to get a copy of this book. Now, you can get a hard copy by going to my Matters of Faith Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15, which covers shipping and handling, or you can get it as an ebook. And the ebook information, I'm going to post that for you so that you'll have it. I just want to make sure that I give it to you. But it's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Let me give it to you one more time. That is www.smashwords.com/books/view/993-177. Better Mag Magazine, www.abettermag.com. For a 2-year subscription, it's only $27.50. They carry my column in their magazine. They publish once a quarter. But we want to support each other. You know, the old saying, support those who support you. We want to do that, make sure that we're doing that on a regular basis, supporting those who support us. And if you like this ministry, if this ministry has been a blessing to you, then support those who support me. And also John J. Fox, Incorporated Funeral Services. They're professional, they're compassionate, and they're family friendly. Proudly serving the Bronx community for 125 years. If you want compassion, if you want professional services, and you want that family-friendly atmosphere, give them a call in your moments and hours of bereavement. 718-733-9114. 718-733-9114. And please, ma'am, please, sir, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. That's what you're watching right now, unless you're watching Facebook. But in either case, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. And telephone, text, email, message, any way you do it, but tell a friend to join us regularly on Matters of Faith, the radio show on Monday nights. We're broadcasting live on Matters of Faith, the YouTube channel, and we're also broadcasting live on the Matters of Faith and the J. Lauren Russell Facebook groups. So please, ma'am, please, sir, subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. And make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Matters of Faith because you did not subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. So on behalf of my guest, Reverend Kimberly Mabry Wright, and myself, I want you to remember that sometimes the best thing that could happen to you seems like the worst thing that ever happened to you. And Mom always and only wants what's best for you. Even in her dysfunction, she still only wants what's best for you. Remember to join us next Monday night at the same time and the same place. Now, if no one has told you this today, then I want you to know that I love you and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it. Now, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So again, on behalf of my guest and myself, I just want to wish you all a very belated Mother's Day blessing